So I'm child-free. That doesn't mean my kids are gone for the weekend. That means I don't have kids, and I'm not planning on having kids ever. And I'm part of the 25% of the US that is child-free or permanently childless. For many financial folks, economists, and politicians, the fact that we have chosen a life to be child-free is a problem. After all, our economy requires constant growth. The question then becomes, how can we, as an economy, deal with a decreasing fertility rate? Is it possible to have an economy that's based on sustainable growth? And are child-free people really a problem? I'm always impressed by how many people challenge our life, or how it challenges them, and they ask us questions. And I was working in healthcare, and one of my staff members comes up to me and she says, "I've been thinking about you. You and your wife are really smart. You need to have kids." I know she meant well, but it's none of her business. And she essentially just stopped her boss in the hall to ask about his life choices and sex life. What she didn't know is that my wife has a 50-50 chance of dying if she gets pregnant. It's not a hallway conversation for us. It's not something we chose flippantly. You know, I told that story once and somebody asked me, "Hey, did you report that to HR?" I was like, we were working in the HR department. Anyone that's ever worked in the HR department knows what I'm talking about. So I'm used to the judgments. I'm used to people judging our way of life. And it's part of the reason why I do what I do. My company, Childfree Wealth, helps child-free people with their life, finances, and estate planning. I spend half of my time talking to child-free people about their life and their finances, and the other half talking to financial people about child-free people. I was talking to a colleague and talking about child-free stuff, and he says, "Well, if you all decide to keep being child-free, you're going to destroy Social Security." I was like, dude, Social Security has enough problems on its own. It doesn't matter what we do. But he's partially right. Our economy and our Social Security system is based on a system of constant growth. Social Security needs a new blood, new young folks to come in to pay for the elderly folks who are claiming on benefits. Our economy needs a rising GDP, needs rising numbers in order to survive. HSBC's global economist, James Pomeroy, looked at this and he said, okay, if fertility rates stay where they're at, if everybody keeps living a little bit longer, we're going to see a 4% drop in GDP over the next 20 years. That may not sound like much, but that would put us into a sustained recession or depression. And it probably would mean the collapse of Social Security. I know that's not a rosy picture. And I know it's easy to blame us child-free people. After all, the American dream says you buy the house with the white picket fence, you have the 2.5 kids and a dog. My wife and I have the dog, but we rent, and kids aren't in the picture. Child-free people aren't living a better or worse life, just a different one. Yet society looks at us as deviants or someone to pity because we're not following the standard life script. We're not following the standard American dream, doing what we're supposed to do. To the point where people will say, well, you're not contributing to the population. By the way, I know that fact. And it's a problem because here in Alabama, for example, we have a demographic cliff where there are more people dying each year than being born. We do have a decreasing fertility rate in the United States. And as you look at it, you say, well, that could be a big problem. And it is. But what I'm going to challenge is I don't think the solution is to have more kids. And I know the solution is not to encourage child-free people to have more kids. When you talk to a child-free person, you try to figure out kind of why they do what they do. What you'll find out is child-free people put more thought into not having kids than most parents put into having them. Some of you are nodding, you know what I'm talking about. Because here's the thing, having kids is the default choice. It's expected by family, society, culture, religion. As you start playing with this, you say, all right, they're picking a different path. We asked child-free people why they're going to not have kids. The number one reason was they just didn't want to have kids. That was followed up by finance, freedom, environment. And then they started talking about really interesting things, like they didn't want to pass on generational trauma, mental health issues, medical issues. These are real issues. These are not things that people are going to just change their mind. Yet, there are quite a few countries that are trying to encourage people to have kids. In Hungary, if you have one kid, you save on your income taxes. If you have 4 or more, you pay no income taxes for the rest of your life. In Japan, where 1/3 of their people are child-free, they have a wide variety of programs to encourage people to have kids. My favorite program, it's out of Denmark. It was called Do It for Denmark. Not joking, it was for you to go on a holiday and have kids. Here in the US, we're looking at it saying, all right, the Department of Transportation just decided to give preferential treatment to states that have higher than normal fertility rates and marriage rates. The White House is working on a series of incentives, including giving $5,000 for each kid that is born and an award if you have 6 or more. Just this week, the Heritage Foundation put out a report saying we need to do a Manhattan Project to encourage marriage and having babies. The problem is, these programs just don't work. The data says it doesn't move the needle. So if that's the case and we can't encourage people to have kids, we can't change the fertility rate, what do? We have 2 paths in front of us. On one side, we embrace legal immigration. If you want the population to keep growing, it's an option. The US fertility rate is about 1.6. You need about a 2.1 in order for your population to keep growing. There are 100 countries across the world that have a population fertility rate over 2.1. That means there's millions of people that would like to legally come here to the US and grow our economy. That's not the path we're on. So now we go to option 2. Option 2 is we embrace child-free people and sustainable growth. The problem is, to embrace sustainable growth, we're talking about changing a lot of our core economic, social, and political systems. Our economy right now is all based on growth, GDP. If our measure is always going to be, did you grow or not, we are going to fail. If instead we shift it and say, okay, how do we do sustainable growth, which means slower or low growth or even no growth over time, maybe we can shift our conversation around it. Now, that's going to challenge just about everything in our economy. We essentially have to throw away the measure we have of GDP, find a new one, and say, all right, we have a new goal. The problem is our economy system as it is cancerous. Our economy, you can say I'm exaggerating, but a cancer cell has one job, and that's to grow. It grows until it consumes the host. That's what our economy is doing. And economists worry that we may not have enough people to consume. You think I'm joking. You look at my social media for our company, and I have one of my favorite mean tweets. I collect those. And he says it this way. He says, look, it's great that you child-free people are self-fulfilled, but our country, in order to grow and prosper, needs future taxpayers and warriors. So for all you with kids, I hope that was the reason you had them. So we have future taxpayers and warriors. You laugh, but that's what our economy expects. Now, that really ends up with this question of well, what do we do? Well, I look at it as 3 things. The first thing we can do is understand and appreciate child-free people for who they are. They're not living a better or worse life. They're just living their best life just like you. They're your neighbors. They're paying taxes just like you, paying for schools just like you, and they don't need convincing to have kids. The second thing you can do is think hard about, do we want to live the life of a cancer cell? Is growth our number one goal? Or can we embrace a sustainable economy where kids aren't grown just to be taxpayers and warriors? The third step is we need to do some hard work on our systems. We know this is all going to start falling apart in a few years, and we need to figure out how do we embrace sustainable growth? How do we change our measures? If we shift from GDP, we need another measure because, of course, we need something to report in the news. What would happen if we started measuring happiness and balance? Now, to my colleagues who say child-free people are breaking the system, what do I say? Maybe we are. Maybe it's okay. Maybe if we embrace child-free people and sustainable growth, we can have cleaner air, space to grow, we can accept people for who they are. I don't know about you, but that's a world I want to live in. Thank you.